What's up, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the SignatureCAST, where we talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. Today on the SignatureCAST, the High Five, one of the two premier arm wrestling teams here in New Jersey. To my right, Jason and Chris. I am not going to botch the last name, so you guys go ahead. Jay, give yourself a little introduction, first, last name, what you're doing here today.
Jason Ciardi. I am one of the co-founders. I'm one of the coaches, and I'm also the creative for the team.
And Chris?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Florenda. I'm also one of the co-coaches and co-founders of the team.
Yeah, I definitely would have messed those last names up. That's for sure, especially this guy right here. It's just Jay, you know?
Yeah, that's all it is.
So, guys, if you haven't already noticed, on our Signature Fitness page, we've been posting practices with the High Five. I am a member. It's honestly, it's an absolute blast, and I appreciate the invite, a few weeks back.
Appreciate you.
And, guys, if anyone out there listening has ever been interested in joining an arm wrestling team, I have to start off with this. Come down to Signature Fitness. Once a month we have it. We also have it at a VFW in Nutley. It is a blast. It's a lot of fun, and it brings back those childhood memories of those, lunchroom arm wrestling battles, gladiator battles that we had when we were
Middle
younger.
school fights.
So with that, we were younger. We all arm wrestled once. How did you guys first start arm wrestling? We'll just go down the table. What got you into it, and what keeps you here?
So I've been arm wrestling as of next month. It'll be 4 years. I've been interested in it for a really long time. I competitively lifted when I was much younger in college, and I've always been involved in sports. I've always done something active. I loved basketball for years, but I got to college and wasn't playing ball. I didn't even go to a school for sports. So I picked up bodybuilding, picked up powerlifting. That really got the ball rolling, like in strength, and had me more concerned, not so much with what I looked like, but being functional, being strong.
Okay.
And it really never stopped from then. About, I say 6, maybe 7 years ago, I'm in the gym and I'm doing all kinds of like weird stuff. I'm, filming things for what I think I'm going to put online that never goes online. And a friend of mine's like, dude, he's like, you've got to arm wrestle. And I'm like, that's not a thing. Like an arm wrestle, you want to arm wrestle, we can go over to a table, right? And he's like, no. He's like, there's this thing on Spike or TNT, right? Like, WAL was out at the time. And he's like, it's a thing. They have competitions. You've got to go. And so I spent the last, probably the next 2 years looking for competitions. They were always in like Syracuse or something. I couldn't get there. And then a friend of mine, I came home from work one day early on a Thursday. And I never have Thursdays off. I work 9 to 9 at night. And my friend is like, hey, listen, I found a team. They practice on Thursdays. You're home at 5, and they start at 7. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to visit like a bunch of guys in a warehouse. Well, I did. I went to visit a bunch of guys in a warehouse. It was really creepy. And
grabbed each other's hands all night long.
And that was Team Beast Mode. That was the other team in Jersey.
Very cool.
Really, really amazing team. That's where I met Chris, and where I got my butt handed to me for quite a while. You think you're strong, and it helps, but nothing is the same as being on the table. But it was just an amazing group of guys. It kind of reignited that competitive fire in me.
Very cool. And Chris, so obviously we now know you were on Beast Mode, but how'd that start out?
Yeah, so I guess my background kind of started more from like actually wrestling. So I did folk style wrestling in high school. Did that pretty much starting 8th grade, and then I ended up becoming captain of the team. But unfortunately, I didn't go to college for wrestling, like Jay had mentioned, for his basketball. But what I did was went to school for finance, but they asked me to come back as a coach for the high school rec team. Cool. Yeah, so I did that for a few years. But I kind of call them like YouTube warriors, where you watch all the YouTube videos and you're like, oh, you see Pulling John on Netflix, and you start pulling with your friends, and you're like, in college, whatever table we could find would pull at. And me and my good friend really got into it. We even pulled our barber at one point. He's really into it too. He actually ended up competing later on. But so funny enough, I was actually at a wedding, and a good friend of mine ended up hitting me up and is like, hey, by the way, I was at the gym in Union, New Jersey. He said, oh, I ran into Marcio Barboza. And I'm like, funny joke. Deal. Yeah, Marcio's at your gym. Yeah, right. Ha, ha, ha. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And he's like, he wanted to meet us, like he said, on a Thursday. At the time, I was at a guy's garage, Bob Sowick, out in it was North Arlington.
Yeah, North. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, you know, he said, let's meet there. And I'm like, so you just told me you met Marcio Barboza and you want to meet a guy's garage on a Thursday night. I'm like, all right, well, you're not going alone because you're probably going to get jumped and everyone's going to steal
As
your
if
money.
Chris could have helped.
Oh my God.
If anyone has seen Marcio.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we thought we were really strong. You know, we were beating all our friends, and we're like, you know what, we're probably gonna go on this team, beat everyone up, besides Marcio, obviously. So we show up, and no, super humbling, like Jay said. So meeting Bob Sowick and Julio Rosario were kind of like the people that set the foundation for us, and kind of got me into it. And like he said, every practice was very humbling. And even if there were people that you could beat, there was always someone that's better than you. You know, no matter how strong you felt that day, that there's someone that's going to show you like, oh no, there's a lot more to this.
I'm so happy you reminded me that that's how it happened, because I have literally the exact same story except for the wrestling part at the beginning. I know we've talked about this a couple of times, but first and foremost, I don't know what's up with Marcio just going to all these random gyms, because about 12 years ago, and I can't wait till I hope he comes to quarterfinals, because I still have his cell phone number from 12 years ago. Me and my friend Rich, we watched Pulling John, which I think that's, Chris, we're the same age, right? 28? So you watch that, you're like, this is so cool, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm in LA Fitness in Clifton, and I'm like, Rich, that's Marcio. And he's just like, no. And I'm like, yeah. So I go up to him, I say hi, and he's like, yeah, we have practice, blah, 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 blah. He goes, just text me. And I'm like, I'm not going to text this guy. I'm like, I think I was like 19 at the time or something like that. I'm like, no way. Now imagine if I had done it, started at 19. Then maybe I could have beaten both of you guys at some point.
We are glad.
But
glad
yeah,
to have you. Glad you started late.
and it was just so cool to hear that story is the same, so similar, because I think that's a great segue into like what type of community arm wrestling is and how it's rapidly growing right now. But if you guys wouldn't mind touching on that, I know for me, it's great that, my girl has her thing that she does. And now, on Sunday, she knows, babe, got to go to arm wrestling practice 5 to 8. I'll see you later. But yeah, if you could just like, stretch on that topic a little bit about like the community that you've seen in arm wrestling and how it's changing right now.
I mean, I know for me, and a lot of what I've experienced is because of Chris and because of Beast Mode. Chris was in it a little while, I don't know, maybe 2 years before me.
That's about right.
So, I mean, just our friendship, meeting you, it's amazing. We have this amazing group of guys on our team, but if you look at the team, it's such a great example of what the community is. It's just all these random people, especially this team. Like, everybody's new. Like you said, you met Marcio in a gym. Chris's friend met Marcio. Like, Bob Sowick, he texted my friend and he's like, hey, just stop by, when I went to the first practice. And that's really what the arm wrestling community is. Nobody cares about anything. Nobody cares who you are. Nobody cares what you do. Everyone's different. Everyone has different levels, but none of that matters at the table. It really is like you come to practices and it's just like a party, like a get together. You know what I mean? We're obviously arm wrestling. We're trying to train and so forth, but it doesn't look like a group of 20 random individual people that have nothing in common. Yeah. And it's like that at every tournament. We've experienced that even with like Larry and Adam Silver, people that have no reason to talk to us. You know what I mean? No, I mean, no reason. You know what I mean? Marcio, for example, and I know, Chris will talk more about that probably, but like Devin, Larrett, and these people that talk to you, and it's like, nowhere else, no other community can you have a chat with Michael Jordan of your sport, what I mean? Or pull with Michael Jordan. Like I said, Larry and Adam don't have to talk to us, but Adam's at practice. It's amazing. Yeah.
I think that's what's so cool about this sport too, and we have to at some point touch on how this interaction happened.
Yeah.
But just like you said, I've had already, before I even joined the team, I've had literal intimate conversations with Devin Larrett. Yeah. Like the Michael Jordan right now. Yeah. And it's just so cool. And Chris, I'm sure you have a million. I'm sure Jay, you have a million. But like there are very few, and it is, to me, it's pretty similar. But it's because I'm, you know, as you said, you competitively lifted in the powerlifting community. It's a lot like that too. But the difference is in the powerlifting community, when you get to that like uber elite level, like the Devins, the Levon, the, you know, John Brzenk, all that stuff, you can tell there's like you need to earn the right to talk to me. It's not like that at all in arm wrestling. It's like, dude, get on the table. Let me show you some stuff, which is so cool, you know?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, man. Nobody cares.
It's so cool. Like, Chris, is that how you felt the first time you were like with Marcio?
Yeah, so I guess like to give context to the people like watching or listening that have never seen arm wrestling professionally done, right? Like you would think kind of like over the top, it's like at a bar and it's like a bunch of like bikers pulling or like truckers and, you know, they're trying to intimidate each other, right? But at the end of the day, what I've come to realize, actually being part of the sport for long enough, I feel like there are actually a lot of family men and women, you know, and people that are like genuinely nice people, you know, and they're willing to show you what they learned and kind of take that time that, like, you know, in other sports, like kind of like you said, mine's more from like wrestling, where sometimes you see someone across the room and you're like already like, you know, trying to scope them out, like, oh no, that could be my competition. I'm not going to talk to them. I don't want to look at them. And then I don't want to give them any type of insight. Ironically, in arm wrestling, even though it's just as competitive and also a strength sport, everyone's willing to show you what they know. Kind of like there's times where when I would start, people would be like, oh, this is why I'm beating you. Let me show you how you can stop it. And you need to get better at this, you know? And that's what I love the most about it. Cause like when I first started, for example, when, you know, like you said, pulling Marcio and like even Bob Sawick, when I first started, I couldn't even move these people. I mean, I still can't move Marcio now, but you know, I couldn't even like get on their level. But my one thing that I wanted to do is I told Bob, I said, hey, my job is that I want to give you a workout. You know what I mean? I know I can't, you know, who knows when I'll be able to beat you, if ever, but I want to make sure that you feel that I'm on the table. And, you know, he kind of helped me get to that point, you know, and I feel like I can honestly say now that we're like actually training partners. You know, it came from like where he was my coach, that now I think we could see like as equals, you know, and I think that's beautiful. You know, you can't see that a lot in sports, where the people you look up to and the people that trained you, sometimes like, you know, it only gets you so far.
Yeah, it is extremely rare. You know, I was very fortunate. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, one of my biggest, did you see that weird mouth thing I just did? That was disgusting. I was like, they're going to hear that back at home. That was horrible. I apologize.
Especially since you repeated it.
Right? I had to. It was just way too awkward.
Yeah,
but when I met Derek Poundstone, who was second place in World's Strongest Man, and you know, multiple Arnold Classic champion winners, and you know, he did live up to the hype. You know, I went to his house. I text him every once in a while. He was my coach for a while. You know, it's so cool to finally, you know, a lot of times we idolize certain people because of the highlight reels that we see of them. And then you turn out they're really not that great of people. And at least so far, I have not found that in the arm wrestling community at all, which is awesome. What I do want to do, and we're going to get this out the way right now.
Uh-oh.
And this is a rapid fire. You have to answer immediately, non-biased. Who's your favorite arm wrestler? Go.
Devin.
Who's your favorite arm wrestler?
Marcio.
Ooh, all right. Mine is hands down Travis Bajan. I don't know why, but I've just
Best left hand.
maybe it was because I think what I love about him is his mental approach to the sport. And after the conversations that Jay and I had last night over the phone, he understands exactly what I'm talking about.
It's difficult being a coach here.
It definitely is. But so why is Devin your favorite arm wrestler?
Well, first and foremost, to be completely honest, he was really the first one that I saw videos of. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So honestly, initially it was just like, oh wow, there's this guy with these crazy arms doing these, you know, these crazy things. It had nothing to do with anything else. But I think it really goes back to what we were just talking about with the community. And tons of people are amazing people. I've met tons of elite and semi-elite arm wrestlers. And they're all amazing guys. But when you stop looking at what Devin does at the table as kind of like he's being a pain in the neck and all of the nonsense. Listen, this is getting on the table and going to war. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, if you're in basketball, I say this all the time to the guys on the team, and if you're in basketball and you go up for a layup and you take 3 steps, you don't tell the referee, oh, wait, and go back. You don't say these things, you know? It's a fight. You know what I mean? There's shit talk before, a fight, an MMA fight or a boxing match. That's what Devin does. He's all in, right? He's all in. He's all about winning at any cost, as long as it's within the rules that he's held to, that he has to adhere to, right? And I find that to be amazing because I just think it's really cool that he's that far in it. I also find it amazing because I have trouble with that, and I aspire to be able to be that raw on the table.
I don't mean to cut you off, Jay. Ladies and gentlemen, we were at the Arnold Classic just, 2 weeks ago?
Should have seen this.
And you should have saw this coming because I was going to bring this up.
Yeah, I did see this coming.
So,
Right into it.
Jay, first of all, I'm gonna say, thankfully, we've been all three of us have been able to become really good friends, and I'm sure that's just going to grow. And I say that Jay is way too nice at the table. Yeah. We're in the crowd. Chris is like 30 feet away from me, and all you
couldn't
can hear
hear
is
Chris, by the way. All you heard was, "Go, Jay!
Come on, Jay!"
Screaming from Will.
Let's go!
He's the only man in the crowd that day.
And he's just like this super calm, like Mr. Clean looking guy up there, for Christ's sake. Yeah, it's okay. It's all good. But wow, I'm gonna just, I don't know if I have to insult you or I want you.
I don't know what it is.
Because like he got really angry because they it was just the way things were structured and whatever. He had to arm wrestle a lot very quickly. And he finally, I'm like, did you just get angry? And all of a sudden, it was just like, oh, now he's angry. And it was like a different human being on the table.
I just spent all this, so a lot of guys, you know what I mean? You're young, you have like a bad temper and so forth. Yeah. And I spent so long like
taking that away,
being that, right? Like taking that away. And don't get me wrong, I've always had kind of like this weird stage fright, like,
okay. I've
always had something like that, like performance anxiety when it comes to like sports and stuff like that. No, not that. We're perfectly fine here. But in terms of like sports, it's always been weird. It's always been uncomfortable. Performing in front of like large crowds, like with my friends playing basketball, and I went far with basketball in some areas, but when I know people, it's weird. It's odd for some reason. And so that's why, again, going back to the question, like that's why I love what Devin does.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is going back to the community. He's everyone that meets him. He's just this great guy. He's this really nice, giant. You know what I mean? A little intimidating how big the man is, but just this really nice, genuine, like do whatever he can do for you. Whatever possible, you know what I mean? And, that's what all people should be, but that's what a man should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you have to fight, you defend, you know what I mean? You go to war. And when you're not, you don't have to be, you know what I mean? You can be a gentleman. You can be a nice person who can fight and do, there's multiple sides to people. And that to me is always what's been the community, you know? And he just seems to embody that, and he just seems to do so much for the community. I don't think anyone else is more important in the sport. You know?
I couldn't agree more, especially with the direction and obviously with the big matches coming up. But I don't want to miss, Chris, you said Marcio is your favorite. So what's the reasoning? Was it the story, or is it just because of personal time you've had with him or whatever it may be?
So I think it's a little bit of both. I think kind of like Jay was saying, like when I first met, saw Marcio on YouTube, like you see this guy, he's like literally exploding like a bomb on the table, right? You see like you imagine just walking up to the guy and, like you'd explode just by being in his presence, right? But now, like when I got to actually meet him in person, it was complete opposite. He was like the calmest guy, super nice, and he's still larger than life. You walk up to him and like you accidentally bump into him and you get hurt. It's like one of those situations. But like, and then getting to meet him on like a personal level, like getting to meet his whole family, and then his kids actually, when his older son actually ended up doing wrestling in the high school. So I got to go to some of his matches and kind of help out with that. So getting to meet him on a personal level, he's, again, like everyone that meets him says he's the nicest person, very religious. He's like always praises God, and and I really appreciate that. He can separate himself from like, kind of like he says about Devin, when he's on the table, like I've talked to him about him, like, how do you get so explosive? He was like, no, because it's like a fight. Like I'm literally like, it's a fight with rules, and he has a background like jiu-jitsu, and and that's kind of where I feel like we have that commonality. It's like he knows like I'm gonna go to work, and whatever happens on this table happens on this table. Mm-hmm. But then when I step away, it's like I can still be the family man and support like the community. And let's be honest, like Marcio doesn't have to come to these practices, right? Like he goes through to the team when he's training, like I don't know how many, like 30 times, and like he's not even sweating. You know, it's insane. It's like ungodly. But like, you know, it's cool because like no other sport do you see like Michael Jordan just walk up to like, you know, the courts in a park and it's like, hey, let me go teach everybody how to play basketball. Like that's insane, you know. But Marcio will do that, you know, and I think it's really commendable.
It's I don't mean to cover my face, but it's just I hope everyone at home just tries arm wrestling at one point, because what he just said is so mind blowing that because they don't understand. Like, and this is not to toot my horn, but I weigh 350. Jay, you weigh 200.
Yeah.
Right? On a good day.
Yeah, 190.
And
same thing.
He's unmovable. Chris is unmovable. Like, I try so hard. And for you to say that Marcio just sweeps through it, like the two of you, like it's nothing, it's just like I had that moment with what was his name? Andre Shark at the Arnold. I'm
Marcio's
like,
worse than
I
that.
hit him so hard and it was a brick wall. And
Marcio's
then
worse than that. I mean, it's like he's having full blown conversation. Like he's like Chris said. No, he really is like. I've never arm wrestled somebody like Marcio. Like I've pulled with other elites and so forth. It's weird. You don't think it's human. It's something I've never experienced with anybody else.
That's awesome.
It's really, really weird, and it's amazing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is.
And to wrap up the example you gave about Devin, I do want to touch on that because I hope Devin listens to this podcast.
That'd be awesome.
Because we met. So I've been on the team for 12 weeks now, and we probably met about at least a month prior to that or so, right?
4 or 5 months we've known.
And what was crazy is we were even talking about Devin then, you know, a little bit, and you know, at the time I was very like, I don't really like the guy. He's he's such a little like.
I remember these conversations.
Little shit on the table, you know. He's he always like, why can't he just be fair? Blah 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 blah. And now that I'm in the sport. And now that I met him because I was at the Olympia, he took his time to. And Devin, if you're listening, thank you. Took his time out of his day, walked me across the entire expo hall, across the entire convention center, registered with me to make sure that I did the amateur. He's like, why don't you do it? Let's go. Come on. And walked me all the way there. And meanwhile, then I'm up on the stage. Like, think of me like total fanboy. I have Devin screaming my name.
Wow.
Like, come on, Will. Stop letting him mess with you.
Yeah.
Like, just pin him. And then on top of that, Michael Todd is behind me. Meanwhile, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm torquing my body like Jerry Carteret, but I'm going for a top roll. Nice. Like literally everything you shouldn't do. And all I hear in the background, I won one of the matches, but whatever. But all I hear is like, oh, look at this guy right here, like, you know, with his big beard. And he's just like, you can see he's torquing. He's gonna press real hard. And all I hear is yeah, that's not where that was supposed to go. Like,
Michael Todd. Yeah.
Michael Todd.
Yeah.
But awesome. You know, like you said, how cool. Michael Todd, like, announcing my random match and Devin screaming for me in the crowd. Like, we got literally like the top 2 in the world at the time. Yeah. Just, you know, that's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. It really.
That doesn't happen anywhere else.
Nowhere else. Nowhere else.
No one else is doing that.
No, not in powerlifting, not in strongman, not in anything. Like it is really, really cool.
No, you're LeBron's kid if he's cheering for you.
Like yeah.
No,
like
that's really what it is. Yeah.
It's so crazy.
That's what it is.
So we are here, right? We're at Signature Fitness, Bellevue, New Jersey. Yep. Crazy gym. I always got to tie it back. Yeah. And you know, Jay, you remember, Chris, I know you live a little far away. Unfortunate for you.
I'd love to come visit.
But you are here once a month. Now, what I do want to, I always ask this with everybody. I know fitness is important for all of our lives. And Chris, we'll start with you because you do have that wrestling background because I'm sure you did other types of training. Yeah. So how do weight training, the gym, and table time, because I know it's different for every person. Mm-hmm. In your arm wrestling career, what's the split? How much do you say for your body? How much do you hit the weights? How much do you do table? How much are you doing just, practicing the movements and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I guess I'd preface this saying that, like, I personally believe that when you first get into the sport, you want to really allocate a lot of your time to table time, because I feel if you try to go into the gym trying to replicate that initially, you're not going to have that kind of foundation to say, oh, this is that mind to muscle connection that I need to hit that I'm not hitting on the table, right? So once you build that foundation of like, all right, what is a top roll? What is a hook? Then from there you can say, all right, now when I get up, stand up to this cable machine, I know exactly, all right, this is what I need to replicate and feel that I feel like needs to get stronger, right? So for me personally, I kind of did exactly that. When I first got into the sport, I was like arm wrestling as much as I could. You know, as much as anyone would arm wrestle me that knew what they were talking about, I'd do it. Now that I'm later on in my career, I feel like in the least arrogant way, I feel like I'd need to pull with other pros to get that much training. So now that our team, like we said, is a newer team, what I'll do is I'll focus more specific things at practice. I might work on like, you know, specific hand stuff or like wrist and fingers, or I might go only inside. And then when I go to the gym, so I'd say maybe like right now, probably like 70-30, 70% on the table, then 30% in the gym where I'm saying, all right, I'm going to specifically work on stuff that I know is weak. You know, like I need to work on my top row right hand. I need to get that a lot stronger. And unfortunately, at practice, there's not so many people, unless it's Jay, that's stonewalling me. I can't really pronate, you know.
Full of it.
But yeah.
Geez, I thought I would have maybe helped a little, but I guess not.
No, I mean, honestly, that left hand last practice, I couldn't
Oh
do
my
anything.
God. No, it's great. But just to break it down a little bit more. Yeah. So when you're hitting the weights, you're still doing arm wrestling specific movements. Or do you still do general, like, you know, benches, squats, or whatever it may be?
Yeah. So I think, I guess aside from arm wrestling, if we're just talking about general fitness, I think even like that's kind of, I guess, the premise of our team, right? Is that unfortunately, unlike other places around the world where they have arm wrestling from a very young age, a lot of arm wrestlers are starting in their like 20s, if not 30s, right? So you need to kind of have a foundation somewhere else. So whether it's in like mine was wrestling or whether it's powerlifting or strongman, I think you could use those strengths and use them for arm wrestling. So, so I think again, throughout the sport, I don't think just because you're doing arm wrestling means you never do legs again. Like I know a lot of arm wrestlers will believe that, but, overall fitness will matter. You know, even talking to, you know, we've been talking about Marcio a lot. There's definitely times before where I'll ask him, like, you know, like, does it matter to be in shape? You know, like some people just think I got to be as big as I possibly can be. And he's like, no, actually, you having good endurance period will translate to the table, you know, and I think that's the big misconception. So, yeah, I think having a balanced, like, fitness head to toe, you know, if you work out everything, and I think Jay said it before, and he'll probably talk more about it with, like, bodybuilding, right, and having that mind to muscle connection. I think that's going to translate when you're training for specific arm wrestling, but you can do that from when you're doing your bicep curls.
Yeah, cool. And then Jay, what's your split looking like now?
So I think it's an evolution, like Chris said, really. My current split is nowhere near what my initial one was. I've always gone to the gym. I've always gone to the gym 5 days a week, so that really hasn't changed. But in the beginning, it really is exactly what Chris said. You can't arm wrestle unless you arm wrestle, you know? I think the evolution from whatever you want to call it, a novice, an amateur, to there really aren't semi-pros, but semi-pro to pro or elite in this country. I think the real evolution is as you become better, you start to learn your body, like Chris said, and you're able to adapt workouts. And you're able to start to focus on certain portions of a workout or certain movements that you might not have been able to focus on before. You know, a lot of people think if you just row or you bench or you do curls that you'll get stronger in arm wrestling. And that's not wrong necessarily, but like now I come to the gym, I have what would be perceived as I would say a relatively, you know, like a bodybuilding split, you know what I mean? Nothing crazy. The body parts I pair are definitely different. My days are generally chest and biceps and shoulders, all pushing movements for the shoulders and chest, and then I'm doing back and triceps and whatever shoulder pulling movements. It's divided because of hook and top roll, but I'm still doing bicep curls. I'm still using the pec deck and everything, but I am manipulating my body in certain ways to, you know, to be a little bit more effective on the table. But again, that's something I think you need to do. And as you'll notice as you get further and further into the pros, guys tend to be a little bit more secluded. They tend to kind of train alone or train a little bit more privately. Part of it is some people want to be secret, but a lot of it is, listen, you know, you can't just train with anyone, you know? it's great the time that we train. So we appreciate you, big guy. Yeah. But Chris is 100% right. Like, there are things I can get from you, but I can't get everything from you. I can get basically all of that from Chris. You know what I mean?
How dare you?
When we go to practice, I'll work on specific things. As Chris said again, like, I'll only hook one day, or I'll try to focus more on my fingers. But the reality is that, you get to a certain level and there's a definitive difference between people. You know what I mean? So we want to help and we want to train people. And I don't care if you played tennis and maybe that's why you got a great hand, or, we have Alina who's a thrower. You know what I mean? Like, any sport, any activity can make you better at arm wrestling in some capacity. So I want to help you with that, but you get to a certain point in your own evolution where you've got to kind of go off on your own. It's kind of like you take your own path.
100%. I think as we develop in any sport, our training specificity, obviously, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at, which is so interesting, Todd Hutchins does a lot of West Side stuff. Mm-hmm. Devin is this whole pumpkin training thing where his one arm is jacked and the other one's still jacked, but just half the size, all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it is really interesting, but I think one of the coolest things when I joined the team was that you talked about how you always you're almost taking like a new approach as to where a lot of people, like, I think it's just because of the natural nature of the sport, have to catch all the time, and that you're really trying to teach us to be more aggressive and to just, be the one winning off the start,
100%.
Hitting across the table initially. Yeah. Not everybody can be Devin and can be Michael Todd. These guys are so, like, we talk about training specificity. They are on like the farthest end.
Yes.
We're all the way over here in reality. You guys are probably about here, and then they have all this way to go. You might want to touch on so there's, for everyone listening at home, we've thrown terms around like top roll, hooking, pressing, all that stuff. But what's the number one rule, right? You can never not have a high enough hand.
Never.
Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
No, 100%.
And so just rising is a huge thing in the sport. And just so you guys can see, and for anybody who's listening, just understand we're grasping up real quick. But he was like, always just rise your hand up. And when you get into a strap, right, it's a totally different game.
Completely.
And
it's almost another sport.
I'm like, I got this. And then I get in a strap and Jay just clunks my wrist forward. And then, right, when we talk about those people being at the 10th degree, and what happened with you, Jay, with Michael Todd when that happened, right?
Oh, no, so, there's people better. I always kind of like to say that there's 5 levels. You know what I mean? There's whatever you want to call it, level 5, or the A-list pullers, the elites. And then there's 10 steps between every major step. And Michael Todd is definitely that A-list puller.
Yeah, level 5.
I'm known for that high hand, that strong hand, that's, strong wrist. I'm more of a hand puller. And I got in the strap with Mike, and Mike's like, so get everything you can get, get everything, get as hard as you can, get as tight as you can up there, get tight as you can, right? And then he's like, so when I do this, and he just puts his hand down and my hand just goes clink. And then he's like, well, what if I do that? And my hand it was like I was being puppeteered. I felt like he was like, look, watch, your hand's doing it. Like, why are you hitting yourself? It's a completely different level. Like, it's the size of his hand. He doesn't have a normally large, long, wide hand, but the thickness, the strength, it's like Marcio. It's on a completely and totally different level. You do not realize there are people out there that can do those things. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's freakish to be able to impose your will on another man, another human being, like you're going to go this way or your hand's going to go that way.
That's how I feel every time.
It's
Jay
crazy.
And Chris, every time.
It's crazy, though. It really is.
No, it really is cool. That's why I mentioned prior, people don't understand, like, when you try to, you're trying to add some side pressure, you're trying to top roll, whatever, and you put everything into it, and it's literally as I think one of you mentioned it. Just put your hand up against a cinder block wall and just push as hard as you can.
Yeah,
I think you said that the other day.
Yeah,
was
Chris has
pulling
said this
Marcio.
before, yeah.
So like to give context, even when Marcio was going through like, and when I say he went through the team, there's like multiple pros on the team. Like these
yeah.
are like people like all shapes and sizes.
A lot of pros
And
on
he
beast
doesn't
mode.
even like pull us like a normal person would. He would grab us by our wrist and he'd say, "All right, now I want you to try to like top roll." And funny enough, like it was like probably the first or second time that I was doing, like he was going through his rounds, I tried to go inside with him and he's like, no, don't do that. I was like, you're right.
Wait, you mean like no, like there's no point.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Bad
He's
idea.
like, that's where I'm strong. Attack my hand. And I was
He's
like,
like, bad idea.
Okay, sorry, Marcio. My bad.
Oh my goodness,
It's like a warning.
Yeah,
that's
Like,
crazy.
No, there's landmines over there.
That's
Like,
absolutely
what?
insane.
Yeah.
too fun.
Oh my God. All right. So next topic, currently right now, and we're going to finish with the big match that we all know that's coming up. But right now, before that match, who would you guys say as the high five? So I think you guys are slowly becoming the authority on this, but maybe the high five will be the top 5 one day. That'd be the goal, right?
The goal.
But the top 5 in the world, who would you say currently right now? And it's tough. And for anyone listening at home, like there might be some European names and names that you've never even heard of. But who would you say currently right now top 5?
Well, I think we can all agree, Levon.
Yeah,
Levon Saganishvili.
Okay.
Leighton.
Yeah, Vitaly Leleitin, 100%.
So 2.
Yep.
What do you think, Alex Kerdeka? He's
Kerdeka's
in there.
also very,
Alex Kerdeka's
really high
up there. I mean, we're talking about giants too, 6'8", 330-pound men. Devin, I think, is definitely in there.
Yep,
If we're talking about
definitely.
North America.
Yep.
And then what about that 5 spot?
And I think that's the hardest one. I think at that point you're kind of like splitting.
There's a
hairs,
big-
like,
yeah.
There's so many. There's 1 or 2 more Europeans, or whatever you want to call them, Easterners, and then to be honest with you, there's 2 or 3 Westerners that are in there, like Chafee, Michael
Carter.
Todd might be in there.
Carter.
Hutchings is always scraping at the ceiling.
Right there,
man.
yeah.
He's a monster, and he's so much smaller than everybody.
Well, and then even though Gasparini just had that loss
That's
to
the European I'm talking about. Yeah,
yeah,
Gasparini is wildly strong. I mean, he's a
insane.
monster Italian. It's just, but you don't know where to put these guys sometimes because things are happening. The community is really divided by East and West, and there's a lot of like Western things going on, a lot of Eastern things, and you're trying to kind of figure out what's going on, and that goes to the next match. It's difficult at times.
And then so let's just recap that one more time. So we said Levon, Leighton, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
Kardeccia,
right.
Devin, and then the 5th is kind of a toss up.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think there's a definitive 5th because there's matches pending that I think would dictate that.
And I am really excited because there are some comebacks on their way. I know Dennis is supposedly working his way back.
I've seen some interesting videos
I know
recently.
when we asked earlier who was our favorite arm wrestler, I think Travis Baden currently is. But when I was a kid, there was nobody cooler than Saplenkov.
No.
I mean, you want
agree.
to talk about something that I would like. That's my goal is just to be like. I think he's the epitome of a wall.
The ogre.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
immovable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, last thing before we wrap up, we know that there's a big match coming up.
Huge.
Levon, Devin.
Yep.
Okay. The first time we guys had this conversation, my decision was a little different. So
100% Levon is the favorite. I don't think there's any dispute there. The favorite. He's the favorite. I don't necessarily think there's anything to being the favorite all the time.
Yeah.
But he's 100% the favorite.
So he might be the favorite, but what do you think? And Chris too. Like you agree, right? Levon's the favorite.
Completely agree.
All right, but one we have to remember it's king of the table.
Yep.
So I know that they're a little bit. I would say they're a little closer to WAL, but it's not really the Wild Wild West. You know, they are still pretty strict. So I'm really looking at it as Devin can just pull out a couple bags of tricks. And if he can just exploit one little crack in that armor, because that's basically what he does all the time.
Always.
But I don't see this being. I used to think that this was going to be a very uneven, like it's going to be a battle. It's either I think it's either Levon is going to run through him, or I think Devin's going to find a place and just bleed him out like he does everybody else.
Yes.
And I think what makes Devin so dangerous, right, is that he can do pretty much everything. So like the fact that he's so versatile, like Marcio in many ways, I feel like once he's a great tactician. So he's going to analyze his opponent and pretty much break him out to like, all right, what do I need to get stronger? And if pumpkin or pancake Devin shows up, I think he could do what he needs to do. And I think that's kind of the question, right? Does the best Devin show up? You know, because that's what's going to have to show up to beat Levon. You know, and anything less, then I think exactly what you said. I think Levon's going to run through him.
Well, and he's his whole pancake mode right now, and he's putting on the weight, and I'm hoping we can get him down for a practice before then.
Would be awesome.
That would be unreal.
But I'm excited. We definitely have to have a viewing party or something. That's definitely happening.
Yes.
But last thing, what's coming up at the end of this month at Signature Fitness? Big time for the high five, right?
327. We have a huge practice.
Yes.
We've been very, very, very lucky with the VFW, but Signature opened up an opportunity. Will helped us. I mean, not really. It's you, big guy. It's and Signature. We're wildly appreciative. It's an amazing opportunity to be able to showcase our sport at such an iconic gym. You know what I mean? There's pros at every level in every sport here, and 327. Our normal practices are, I'd say 18 to 25 guys, right? These practices at Signature are 50 plus people.
Yeah.
6 tables. There's table and pulley training. We might have a couple of surprises for you guys. We were really, really lucky, and we had the wonderful Mr. Adam Silver come to our last practice.
That we did, yeah.
Which was really, really cool. Might have a couple surprises this one, but it's just a great time. It's just a great time. It's a huge party, loud music and arm wrestling. I mean, it's like middle school without classes.
That's it. Maybe we'll throw some pizza in there this time. I don't know.
We can do that
for the heavyweights.
We can do
Uncrustables. That's what
Uncrustables. Yes.
So Chris, Jay, the high five. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. I know the audience at home is going to love it. Please, if you have ever been interested in arm wrestling, come down to a practice. And if you're not from the area, find a practice because it's a wonderful, wonderful community. That's another episode here of the Signature Cast where we talk bodybuilding, business, and everything in between. It's a wrap. The high five. We'll see you guys on the 27th. Have a good one, guys.
Good one.